if I were to describe to someone what is Brazilian Zouk, I would say Brazilian Zouk is a Brazilian partner dance inserted in the context of other Brazilian partner dances.
It's a very complex dance. It's a very intriguing dance. And it's forever evolving dance.
It's a Brazilian dance, but it has a name from another place. And the majority of songs we dance to are also not from Brazil. So it's a very strange dance.
The pros and cons of being so open and flexible that sometimes people can interpret in a way that maybe goes too far.
Brazilian Zouk grew beyond the borders of the country more than any other partner dance.
It has become an environment where the Zouk addicted people gather. It's not necessarily this place where people from all ages and cultures feel like they can just walk in and have fun. It is something that I think the community should reflect and think about. How can we make it more inviting for the general crowd? Because let's be honest here, guys. We're always looking for ways to grow the community. Let's be honest. What are we really trying to preserve when we talk about Brazilian Zouk? Is it just a list of moves? Or is it a culture where everyone feels like they belong? If the music stopped, would we still see the essence of the dance? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone, and welcome back to ZoukNerds. In this episode, Gui and I talk about what Brazilian Zouk truly is. We look at how musical influences changes how we move, the intriguing story behind why we call it Brazilian Zouk, and why today's community might feel less welcoming than it used to be. Let's look beyond the steps and find the real spirit of the dance. So, let's go! Hello everyone. My name is Alisson Sanji, and let's welcome back our beautiful co-host Gui Prada. Hello, Gui.
Hello, Alisson. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ZoukNerds.
That's right, everybody. And today we have one of those episodes. One of those episodes that we are a little bit nervous to talk about, but at the same time, we think that it's very, very important. And today we're going to be talking about what is Brazilian Zouk. Just a heads up here. This is not what is Brazilian Zouk in terms of a history lesson. So we're not going to be covering how it started and how it evolved. But what we want to focus on today is this conversation that happens online every now and then, which questions what is and what is not Brazilian Zouk. For example, what is a good representation or a true representation versus something that people may look at and go like, well, that's not Brazilian Zouk, that's not part of the culture, that's not part of the history. That's what we're going to talk about. And if you've been online in the last few weeks, you may have seen that things have happened. And because of that, a certain movement and conversation started online. And that's why we want to have this discussion here. So Gui, for you, as a person first, maybe we'll talk about professional and teacher later. But as a person, as a dancer, what is Brazilian Zouk and what does it bring to your life? And what represents Brazilian Zouk? How would you describe to somebody what is Brazilian Zouk?
I liked the last bit of your question better. How would you describe what is Brazilian Zouk to somebody that is asking? And this is actually pretty challenging because we can think about Brazilian Zouk as the dance itself. So then we can consider what are the movements of Brazilian Zouk, what are the characteristics, movements of the dance. We can think about the dance as an environment, like what goes in the place where people are dancing Brazilian Zouk, But if I were to describe to someone what is Brazilian Zouk in the most straightforward way that I can think about, I would say Brazilian Zouk is a Brazilian partner dance inserted in the context of other Brazilian partner dances. So it follows similar qualities that other Brazilian partner dances have. And I think the main quality of a Brazilian partner dance, when I think about me growing up in Rio, when I think about me learning more intensely a lot about several partner dances, the main characteristic of a Brazilian partner dance for me is that in the environment that you go to dance one of these dances, you will find people of all ages. You will find an environment where you can dance the whole time, or you can sit the whole time, or you can have a conversation and dance. So it's a socialization activity. And consider that Brazilian Zouk is inserted in this bigger context of other Brazilian partner dances. I would say that it's a dance that has in its core characteristics elements that are common to other dances. We dance in the embrace. We dance outside of the embrace. We have focus in the lower body, so hip movements, footwork, leg work. We travel. It's a dance that travels. And it's a dance that when you watch it, you can easily identify and easily differentiate from the other dances. At the same time, if you watch the basic of Brazilian Zouk, the back and forward basic, and you watch the basic of Bolero, and you watch the basic of Forró, and you watch the basic of Samba de Gafieira, you see some similarities. So you see how they influenced each other. So I think I would start more objectively speaking, describing Brazilian Zouk in this way, as one of several Brazilian partner dances inserted in a cultural context that has the social dancing, the gathering to social dance as its main feature. It's not by definition a competition dance. It's not by definition a dance that you have set standards in how you execute it. It's a dance that it is for you to go somewhere and dance with somebody that has a lot of experience and dance with somebody that is just starting. So inviting you to be more adaptable, inviting you to be more social. And what else? Yeah, I think I'll start there. I would also say that it's our most peculiar dance. It's our strangest form of partner dancing. Because if you think bolero, samba, forró, soltinho, samba rock, sertanejo, we dance the dance to songs that we make. We do piseiro music. If you don't know what piseiro is, go look it up. It's amazing. We dance samba rock to samba rock music, samba de gafieira to samba music, bolero to bolero music. And then Brazilian Zouk is a dance that has a name that is not ours. And it got the name that is not ours because of a music style that is also not ours. So Brazilian Zouk is this very interesting dance in the array of Brazilian partner dances because we were dancing a dance, Lambada, into a song, into a style of music that was Zouk. And then we started to call the dance Zouk. But then to differentiate it from the Caribbean Zouk, we started to call it Brazilian Zouk. So it's a Brazilian dance in a Brazilian partner dance context, but it has a name from another place. And the majority of songs we dance to or that we used to dance to are also not from Brazil. So it's a very strange dance. How would you describe it, Addison?
Well, I think that's a very, very great start. And this almost leads us into a whole other episode, which is like, is Brazilian Zouk the right way to call this? Shouldn't we just call it Lambada? But guys, have a seat. Let's not get too excited about this. We can talk about this another time. Now, to answer to your question, what is Brazilian Zouk? I think I would start very similar to what you mentioned, and then I would take it a little bit more on my personal side. What is Brazilian Zouk to me as a person? To me, this dance really fits with how my brain works, how my body works, how my feelings and emotion works. It's a very complex dance. It's a very intriguing dance. And it's an ongoing, forever evolving dance, which to me, it just fits everything that I am. I can never do the same thing for too long. I don't like things that don't change. I like things to improve, to get better, or to find other pathways. And that is what Brazilian Zouk is to me in my personal life. It's a place where I feel like I'm always learning. It's a place that I feel like is always challenging me to get out of my comfort zone. And I'm always feeling like, wow, this is never going to stop. It's just never going to stop. That's why I guess we call ourselves ZoukNerds here, because we really nerdy about, it's not just about the dance that makes us feel good, that allows us to have a career. But to me, it's very personal. So that's the benefit for me in my life and the benefit that I see in a lot of people's life. Like Brazilian Zouk allows them to explore themselves beyond just the dance. It's such a complex dance that has influences from so many other styles and cultures that it really pushes you out of this comfort zone. I would compare Brazilian Zouk to modern or contemporary dance. It takes from a lot of other styles, but it's not clearly defined in one way that this is the only way and everything else is wrong. And that's the history that we have seen with Brazilian Zouk. From the very beginning to then 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later, and now, the dance is continuously evolving and changing. But at the same time, I do understand when we're looking objectively, there are a couple of things that makes it Brazilian Zouk, which are the things that you mentioned. It's a partner dance. It's a community gathering. It has certain distinct body movements and shapes that, like I mentioned in the previous episode, even if you turn off the music and you watch a video, you think, I think this is Brazilian Zouk. Or they might be using movements or like shapes that reminds me of Brazilian Zouk because it is so distinct. And I think what makes it very distinct is the fact that it's such a mix of everything that doesn't look like anything specific. You know, you can look at one short clip of Zouk and you think, is that tango? And then you look at another short clip of Zouk, maybe 10 seconds, and you think, oh, is that contact improv? And then you look at another one and you think, ooh, is that a hip hop dance? Or maybe West Coast swing? Or maybe like from somebody who is not from Brazil, probably, okay? Watching around the world. They can connect Brazilian Zouk to so many dances that I think that's what makes this dance special. Which, to my last point here, brings the pros and cons of being so open and flexible that sometimes people can interpret in a way that maybe goes too far. Too far from what? Well, it depends on how you're looking at it. Too far from Brazilian partner dancing. Yes, we can kind of have a scale of how close to or how far from. But the situation gets really tough when you're talking about, cultural values, when you're talking about community values and things like that, such as what's been happening recently. Because in the end of the day, Brazil is such a multicultural country. Like we've mentioned in previous episodes, you can be very liberal and progressive in Brazil, and you can be very conservative that you'd think, oh my God, is this really South America at all? Because that's what Brazil is. So I think Brazilian Zouk, in a nutshell, represents the complexity of Brazilian Zouk culture, because it's so hard to even spot a Brazilian person on the street because that's how mixed it is.
I got curious, Alisson. How would you tie Brazilian Zouk dance to Brazilian culture? How would you tie the two? What would you say is the connection? What is the element?
I think the partner dancing aspect to it. For example, when I look at my own family, whenever we have a family gathering, somebody is going to start playing some music, either samba or forró, and they're going to start dancing together. It just happens. Look, none of my other family members have ever done a dance class. I'm the only one who has done it. But my mom, my uncles, my cousins, even my dad, sometimes will dance a little forró, will dance a little samba. It doesn't look like anything that we do in our Brazilian dance schools, but they dance. So that to me is a really strong tie to the Brazilian cultural aspect. It's a gathering of friends or family members that at the sound of something that makes them want to move, they either start moving by themselves or they grab somebody, hold each other, and move their feet and do random turns, however it works. No technique, no dance class required. So that is really something that connects to me to the Brazilian culture.
Nice. Yeah, I would say something very similar too. I think this aspect of social dancing as a friendly gathering where you don't need to necessarily know the dance with precision, and you can already dance. Zouk, Brazilian Zouk ended up acquiring a different reach, I would say. Brazilian Zouk grew beyond the borders of the country more than any other partner dance. Perhaps forró has the same or a similar reach outside of Brazil, but forró was able to keep its connection with the music because the dance is danced to the music. And Brazilian Zouk is danced to so many different styles of music, and because of that, because the different styles of music we dance to, that modifies the dance quite a lot. Songs without a strong beat, songs without a strong rhythm, they don't invite too much lower body movement or too much steps. They invite more of the upper body movement. And I think sometimes, and I don't know if you agree with that, Addison, but I think sometimes when people want to preserve the dance, when they want to protect Brazilian Zouk, I think they also want to protect this aspect of rhythm and beat, body movements, stepping, hip movements. There was some time ago, some years ago, in which I remember in Europe, the dances being to very lyrical songs and really mostly upper body focused and really mostly hand motion focused, where you wouldn't see what they're doing with their feet because everything that was happening upstairs was so mesmerizing, so beautiful that you wouldn't see. And then I remember back then, but this is not the dance. This is not Brazilian Zouk, call it something else. Do you agree with this idea that preserving the dance and keeping it attached, connected to the roots is also related to the songs that we play and the rhythm and the beat? Because before I go to you, we have these very fascinating things. They say, preserve the dance, keep the music. Keep in mind that the music is not ours. Like play traditional music. Traditional music is Zouk. Is Zouk music that we didn't make. No Brazilian artist was part in making those songs. How do you go about, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I'm going to go further and explain a few other things here about this Brazilian cultural phenomenon across the globe. Because the way I explain to people what Brazilian Zouk is, I usually start by saying, look, it's Lambada. Okay, so if you've heard of Lambada, this is a Brazilian dance from the streets, from basically the natural way that people listen to the music and dance to the music. Okay, so it wasn't a dance school dance. Now, Brazilian Zouk was a dance that was built on top of Lambada by Brazilian dance teachers. So it was a dance built for dancers and a dance that was born within dancers that were trained and they had all the things that dance teacher would have. So it wasn't as natural evolving as Lambada or as Forró or as Samba or salsa or so many dances that were what I call like street born and raised dances. This was a dance that was born and raised in dance schools or in socials that were mostly attended by dancers who did dance classes, right? So this is already very tricky because, for example, when I was in Australia, I taught Forró, I taught Samba de Gafieira, and I taught other Brazilian styles as well. My Brazilian Zouk students and the Forró and Samba de Gafieira students, they were not the same people. Some of them, a few, would do both. But the Samba de Gafieira and the Forró students, they were into their culture. They wanted to know what Brazil is. They wanted to listen to the music. They wanted to understand the lyrics. They learned Portuguese. They traveled to Brazil not for like congresses. They traveled to Brazil to understand the culture. Just like people when they do capoeira. They come to me, like whenever people come to me around the world and they start speaking Portuguese to me directly, and I start talking to them, and I ask them, oh, how do you know Portuguese? They're like, oh, I dance forró. Or, oh, I do capoeira. Now, look at Brazilian Zouk community. How many people learn Brazilian Portuguese? How many people learn Brazilian culture or even care about what Brazil is as much as the forró, the samba, the capoeira people? It's very different. Because, like you mentioned, Brazilian Zouk is such an international dance, way more than the other Brazilian dance styles. And that alone already makes things very complex because how Brazilian is Zouk in comparison to all of the other Brazilian dance styles, or even in comparison to Lambada? How Brazilian is it? If it has West Coast swing influence, ballet influence, contemporary influence, tango influence, so many other influences, what is the percentage of what we do in Brazilian Zouk that is actually like very recognized and very strong in other Brazilian dances? Not a lot, to be fair. Not a lot. We recognize it as Brazilian Zouk because it's when you put all of those things together, it becomes Brazilian Zouk. But when you think about it, yeah, it's very complex.
Yeah, man, fair point. Touché. Because when we think about this aspect of music and the music being an important driving force, right? We slow down, things slow down in Lambada a lot due to the dance slow down, Lambada slow down, Zouk slow down, Brazilian Zouk slow down, because the music also slowed down. So the music, the songs we are dancing to, they are a powerful force. They're a powerful drive. And when you go learn forró and samba, you dance to songs that are all in Portuguese. Of course, you have bossa nova, you have these songs with the samba rhythm. They are not in Portuguese. They are not singing Portuguese. But you end up dancing to a lot of songs in Portuguese. And then eventually you get curious. What is it that they are saying? I want to be able to sing along with you and everybody. So the curiosity, I think it sparks almost like in the back of the mind. And it gets stronger, stronger, stronger because day in, day out that you go out to dance, you are listening to Portuguese. And especially with the forró songs, they are so poetic. They are so specific in the ways that they say certain things. So nice, so cute. That I can see people getting curious to understand what is being said. Because Brazilian Zouk, a lot of the remixes are songs in English. Most of them are songs in English. I feel very happy when I go to Brazil because the DJs there, in my experience of social dancing there, they play a lot of songs in Portuguese. Lots of songs in Portuguese. I have one of my favorite sets is from a DJ in Brazil. Her name is Olhares. And I think 80% of her set is songs in Portuguese. I love that. And I feel this thing that I can only identify as identification. I feel that I am where I'm supposed to be. There is a deep sense of belonging, and that just by changing the language. So it does have a powerful impact. So I think, Alison, building on what you said, how Brazilian is Brazilian Zouk, considering that we are dancing to songs that were not made in Brazil. The name of the dance itself has an element that is in French Creole, Zouk. Originally, we started calling Zouk because we started dancing to Zouk music. And then you go, né? You just put a lot of elements. What ties it back to our culture, right? And I think it's, even with all these elements, it's still the result of the soul of a people in the way that they like to move, in the way that they like to connect, which is so unequivocally Brazilian in the sense of the closeness, the sense of the joy, in the sense of the stepping. And again, I go back to the lower body. And we also do upper body amazingly well, of course. The origins of all of our dances, though, they are lower body. If you look at the origins of Lambada, they didn't have head movements, and they were not, for example, in Lambada competitions back in the day, they're not supposed to open the embrace. So staying in the embrace was super important. Even though with all these elements that distance it from purely Brazilian, elements, I think it's still the fruits of people who like to dance in a particular way, who like to move in a particular way. And these immaterial elements, these metaphysical elements that we cannot necessarily grasp or see very well, but we know is there, we know it exists. I think that's what many people are trying to protect, that element. So when all those years ago, there was this discussion about the dance is not the dance because of the absence of certain elements like the beat and the rhythm. I think people are trying to say, but we don't do this. We don't do like that. That's not the way we do things. Why you guys are so far away? Why? Where are the hips? I don't see the hips moving. So there were a lot of these elements going on. The other thing with what you said, Alison, how Brazilian is Brazilian Zouk, is the element that we brought up before of how much the dance traveled abroad. And if you look, and we're not going to be hypocritical here, me and Alison are cases of that. Alison is now living in Taiwan. I spend most of my time in the US. This podcast is in English. A lot of the content that we post is in English. A Brazilian Zouk went further from its border and expanded. And in that expansion, it borrowed elements of other cultures, other peoples, and other ways of expressing. I think, however, that we were still able to maintain these core elements. And I think we can still be speaking in English. We can still be doing events outside of Brazil. We can still be expanding while keeping this core element protected in the sense of the dance itself. When it comes to the environment that we dance, like Alison said, and like we mentioned before, this element of a gathering of people that get together to hang out and social dance, that's where I think Zouk diverged the most from other Brazilian partner dances, to the point that now it's so separate that I cannot see Brazilian Zouk dance and crowd inserted in a dança de salão, social or party. It's very hard for me to visualize that. The crowd is very different. In the dança de salão party or social, you see a much wider age range. And then in Brazilian Zouk gatherings, you see the age range is more limited. You see younger people in Brazilian Zouk events. Normally, the socials are darker, the parties are darker in Brazilian Zouk. They go until very late. This thing, people, why are we starting the party at 11 p.m. and going until 5? Also, when doesn't salon parties, from what I remember and what I see that it still exists, at least in Rio, the social starts at 6, 7. By 11, 10, we are over. Let's go home, healthy sleep. the music, the volume, like the more you travel, the more you see that people are now using more and more these things to protect their ears, to protect their hearing, which for me is very interesting as well. Why, if the DJ is watching everybody, like 80% of the people wearing the thing, why don't we just like go down with the volume, So that's another story. So the environment that we dance Brazilian Zouk also is different from other Brazilian dances. And I wonder, I don't know if you can break this down for us, Addison. I wonder, where is the cultural element there? What is the cultural element of the environment of Brazilian Zouk when we compare it to other partner dances? I can understand the idea of it being an open environment that welcomes everyone of all ages, of all walks of life. In practice, though, who's going to come out at 11 p.m. to go out to social dance in a very loud room? And when you are there and you observe, you don't see people past a certain age. So I think we want to protect the safety of the environment, and that's super precious. That's really precious. But I wonder, what is this thing when we talk about culture that we want to preserve in Brazilian Zouk when referring now to the environment that we dance to dance? It's philosophical. It's a difficult question, I don't know. I don't know if you can, bring this to us as an event organizer that has been organizing festivals and things for so many years.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because when I look at the community, the festivals, the socials, and the things that are happening in the community, it's really hard to think that I could be taking my parents or cousins that are either at my age or older than me to just, go and have fun just watching, or maybe even having a quick dance as they learn something. Like, I would see something like that in a Samba bar, in a Forró party, where I could take my family, we'll have a couple of beers, we dance a little bit, we do a couple of steps here and there, because I do feel like it's more an inclusive environment. But Brazilian Zouk, even in Brazil, and especially outside of Brazil, it has become an environment where the Zouk addicted people gather. It's not necessarily this place where people from all ages and cultures feel like they can just walk in and have fun. For example, I used to teach Brazilian Zouk in this nightclub in Perth, Australia. And it's a nightclub with multiple rooms. So they had like a Brazilian live band room, and they had a techno room, they had a salsa room, and they had our Brazilian Zouk room. And you'd see that people who came to this huge nightclub/bar, they would go to the salsa room and just hang out and, have fun, have a drink, shake a little bit, a little shimmy. They go to the Brazilian room, enjoy, dance, shake their ass and do all the things. But then they will come to the Brazilian Zouk room and kind of like look and just go against the wall and watch. If they were courageous enough, they would start a conversation with somebody and ask like, what are you guys doing here? What dance is this? But most of the times it was just like a little look, kind of not really vibe with it, and then walk away. Because it was kind of like this atmosphere and environment of like, if you know, if you don't, then you're just confused and you're going to walk away and probably not even think about it again. So it's not that vibe that you get in a Forró party or salsa party or Samba party. It is something that I think the community should reflect and think about. How can we make it less that way and more inviting for the general crowd? Because let's be honest here, guys. We're always thinking and looking for ways to grow the community. But have we stopped to think that the community and the socials, they're not as inclusive or open for the general crowd as the other communities are? So that's something to think about.
Yeah, I agree so much with you, Alison. I think if we are wanting to preserve Brazilian Zouk culture as part of Brazilian partner dance culture, we want to bring it to more people. We want to make it more accessible. The dance is already pretty tricky. And like I was saying, the dance can be very complicated. But I think, my humble opinion, Samba de Gafieira is more complicated. Tango is as complicated. And you see a 90-year-old lady dancing.
Yeah, when people say to me, oh my God, Brazilian Zouk is so hard. And I'm like, no, Brazilian Zouk is a master's degree. If you try Samba de Gafieira, that's a PhD.
PhD, man. And it's like, and you see the old ladies, doing cadeirinha, like if you know what cadeirinha is a step where the follower takes the foot off the ground and does these things here with the leg and sit on the leg of the leader and then go back down again. So they do cadeirinha, they do all these things, In tango, I see these older couples dancing the whole time with each other. And they are trickier dances because in tango, for example, it's months just walking. Who has the patience for that? So I think in our desire to preserve Brazilian Zouk dance environment, I think it would be really productive for us to look at the environment that we have right now. Like Alison was saying, people were in the other room dancing salsa bachata, who by definition, songs that are more uplifting. And then they go to the Zouk room and imagine it's a set from Lord Pfeiffer playing or Auler, that the songs are more, that the set is made in a way for you to dance a long time with a person. And you have all these So the person just left a ding, 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 and then go to and dancing, see people dancing. It's darker. Everybody's dancing. And they go back to the other room. There are people dancing in the room and there are people standing up next to each, drinking something, I went to a Forró social in São Paulo, and it was just that. People would stand, somebody invite them to dance, they put a drink, dance one song, go back, drink back, and Very different environment. So what is it, I ask, that we want to preserve when we think about Brazilian Zouk dance environment culture? Because right now, they are late at night, they are very loud, and they are very dark. And the way that the sets are built are embracing all different styles of music, which is amazing, which is perfect. I love that variation. Let's go. The thing is, if we think about openness, accessibility, safety, are we gonna bring our family to that environment? I imagine taking my mom to a social in a congress, and my mom is in bed at 9:30, 10 p.m., and she just turned 60. She's not that old, And I imagine taking her and then take her to a loud environment where everything is very dark. I would take my mom to a Forró party. I would gladly do that. Of course, let's be fair. There are Forró parties that are also very late. That's there. But we also have the Forró parties that start very early, finish early. So I think, like Addison said, it would be nice for us to reflect on this. It would be nice for us to think about that and see if what we are doing right now is really attuned to the culture of historically what has been all the Brazilian partner dances in what comes to the environment that it creates. So the people who knows the dance can come and dance, and so people who don't know the dance can also come and observe and perhaps feel brave to stand up and do a little bit. So I think we can leave you guys with this reflection until we talk about this again.
Yes. Hopefully this conversation was enlightening and eye-opening. And if you're looking for a specific answer, I hope it's somewhere in the episode instead of like at the end, we give you this concrete answer, because it's very complex. From the very beginning, we said it. The dance is complex. The culture is complex. The conversation and the disagreement is very complex. But I think that the more we talk about it and the more we listen to each other, the more we're going to grow and the better the community is going to be. So thank you for being here. Please make sure that if you want to continue supporting us, go down in the app and see if you're following or subscribing us. Share this with a friend. Maybe share this on the social media. And we'll see you on the next episode for another yummy or tough topic. We'll see. So thank you, everybody. Beijos, beijos. Abraços. And ciao.
Bye, everyone.